So recently, a guy called Ash invited me. He's from VarmintshootersUK. He invited me out to do some long-range shooting up north, and you know, he'd noticed that some of my groups weren't as great as they should have been at longer ranges. So he said he'd offer me a few tips, give me a free lesson, basically. So I made the trip up to Grimsby, and yeah, what follows is what happened. So as you can see here, Ash decided to start me off on the 2.2. Obviously, no recoil, very used to it. Because one of the things you find when you go up to centrefire is you do have a tendency to pull the gun a little bit. So as he started the lesson, basically, he started me off on the 2.2, moving up to the 2.23, and then up to my 2.43. And as you can see here, just with like 5 minutes of a few tips to saying what I was doing wrong, I'm just consistently hitting a rabbit's head sized target, which is that gong on the right, at 100 yards. And that's in a 25-mile-an-hour wind, and that's using subsonic ammo, which is pretty amazing, really. I mean, I'm giving it like a foot's worth of windage to hit that, but it was just effortless, to be honest. So, yeah, that was pretty amazing, to be honest. I mean, I must admit that the bipod was very handy. I'm going to probably make some more use of that when I'm out in the field now. Now, this is Dave here. He's got a Hauer chambered in 2.23 and at 100 yards again, just knocking down the gongs. And to be honest, the 2.23 is, it's just recoilless, to be honest. It's really much the same as shooting a 2.2. I mean, it makes quite a loud bang, but yeah, there isn't much to it. So I can see why it's a popular foxing gun for a lot of guys, because it is a very easy rifle to shoot accurately. Only because, like I said, it's just so easy to get used to. And you can see Dave there, he's just shot the shackle off. Yeah, slightly annoying. Now, here I am, again, with my 2.2, subsonic ammo, 25-mile-an-hour wind, and I'm reaching out to 125 yards, and hitting without really any problems at all. You know, it's incredible, to be honest. Having that position, though, going prone, which is not something I'm normally particularly keen on, because obviously, you're lying down on the ground if it's wet or whatever. But it's such a solid platform. You might have noticed, though, I do have the legs extended. Now, it is actually more comfortable to have them retracted, but on the land I'm shooting on, when I'm going to be shooting at rabbits and stuff, if I'm if I don't have those legs extended, I am going to be shooting basically horizontally. And when you've got a very flat ground and you don't have big banks or hills behind the target where you're trying to shoot into the ground, you just need that little bit of extra height. Because at that height, shooting a rabbit's head, I'm always going to have the muzzle pointing downwards, which is, useful. So I'm hoping to make use of that before the grass gets too long through the summer. And I'm going to borrow Tom's rangefinder off him, and hopefully I'll be able to knock down some really long-range rabbits. But, well, we'll have to see. But as you can see here, regardless, as I said, giving it about, a foot windage with each shot, I'm pretty consistently hitting that gong. So, yeah, it was unbelievable. And it didn't take a lot, really, to get me shooting like that. A lot of it is just, it's kind of common sense when you think about it, but at the time, without somebody actually pointing it out to you, you don't necessarily notice. You're just talking about, basically, you can see my left hand supporting the stock and not bothering to try and sort of support the forend. Well, the reason you do that is because, the gun's going to recoil no matter what you do. There's nothing you can do about it. So you're better off supporting the stock in your shoulder to make sure that it recoils consistently every single time. And what you can do is push slightly forward on the bipod. It sort of primes the bipod a little bit. And that means if there is any recoil, not there is with 2.2 obviously, but if there is any recoil, the bipod will take the brunt of that, and it will keep you consistent. And the other thing that Ash got me to do was, and it was funny because he actually put an empty shell in the gun without me knowing for the first shots. That was with his 22-250, I think, just so he could see what I was doing. But one of the things I was doing was not using the very tip of my finger, and that's really important because if you use your finger a bit further along, like on the joint, you'll tend to just slightly move the rifle each time you fire, which knocks your zero off. But as you can see here, this is 180 yards, and in that top right, that's a potato I'm shooting at. Now, I must admit, I didn't hit it, but I'm getting very, very close. And to be honest, if it wasn't windy, I don't think I'd have had a problem hitting it, to be honest. And that's insane. I mean, it really is 180 yards with 2.2 subsonic ammo. I don't think I'd hunt at that range, but, it can be done. Now, you can see here I'm having a go with the Hauer, so I've moved up a level. This is at 215 yards. And it's 223. It was a question of just walking the shots onto the target a bit. Because you don't really know, short of having like one of those weird windmill things, you don't necessarily know what the exact wind speed is at any one time. But, you fire a couple of shots, you get a feel for where it's going, and then, you can fairly consistently hit it. I must admit, though, 223 is very soft shooting cartridge. It's like no recoil, really, at all, to speak of. I can see why it's a popular foxing caliber. But obviously the trouble with it is that it's no good for deer. Not that necessarily I'm going to shoot a lot of deer, but it's nice to know if one does stick his head up, if he, one of those rows on one of my permissions, that I don't have to worry about, the caliber, I can just shoot it. But it's a nice rifle. They're Japanese, I think, Hauer. I don't know if, I wouldn't say I was amazed by it, but it's very well built, very nice. Let's see if I get this. See, I just missed just that. See, the wind kept changing, which was a problem. Now, this is me on the 22-250 at 215 yards. And, that was an interesting rifle. That's, I say it's Ash's rifle. It's one of Ash's many rifles, I believe. But that's his long-range rifle. And the scope it starts at 20 times magnification. So basically, it's that rifle's set up. It's a Remington 700, by the way, accurized, but it's set up for shooting at 200 meters plus. Really, anything closer than that, you're gonna have a hard time seeing it because you're gonna be zoomed in so much. I did find the crosshairs weird on it though. They were so thin that you could hardly see them, especially in the light. But it's a great rifle. As I said, he's got like a fancy barrel on it, and he's got a fancy trigger on it. The trigger is like it's like nothing, or you'd almost blow on it and it would go off. That said, I don't know if I got on with it that well. I think I just need a bit of practice. I think a lot of it was just the scope, really. Having that much magnification is quite weird for me. I'm not used to that. I mean, using 10 times zoom, reaching out to 100 meters with the 2.2 felt like a lot to me. Certainly a lot more than I would normally use. But it's cracking rifle, and quite as you can notice, some quite fancy paintwork on that as well. Finally hitting, getting there. Now this is me at 215 yards again, which is about 200 meters, with the 243, and pretty effortless. At the same time, I'm giving it about a foot's worth of windage, and it was tricky because the wind did keep changing direction a little bit and in ferocity, so I was having to adjust. But it's great fun. Honestly, shooting steel is just the way to go. I mean, those targets come from SSS targets. Is it? I can't remember now. God, she's going to kill me. But it's a great way of doing it because it means that you're not getting paranoid about getting the perfect group or whatever. It's just a question of SSS targets. Sorry, I was checking my phone. You just put the steel out there, and it's just like, can I hit it? And if you can hit it, then brilliant. I mean, if you're shooting a 243. Those plates, even the biggest plate, is still smaller than the kill zone on a deer, and about the kill zone on a fox. So, that's good enough. And then once you can consistently hit that, reach out a bit further, see how far you can go. The only thing I would say, and you can see the camera's getting massively knocked about by the wind here. I think it will sort itself out in a minute. Yeah, you can just see it at the top right. Yeah, one thing that was a problem in a way is my Schmidt and Bender scope, despite being very, very nice and very expensive, it is a fairly short-range scope with fixed 6x magnification. 200 meters is really about as far as you're going to be shooting because, you know, everything gets really small beyond that, and the crosshairs are quite thick. So you can imagine if you were reaching out to like 300 or 400 meters, the crosshairs end up just like, you know, literally blocking out what you're aiming at. As you know, in contrast to say on the Ashes 22-250, as you can see Dave's looking down, spotting for me with, that's got a really thin crosshair, you know, because, you know, for the opposite reason, because if you're reaching out to like 1,000 yards, you don't want the crosshairs blacking out what you're shooting at. So I guess if I want to look at some really, really long range shooting, I'm probably going to get a new scope. I do fancy a Zeiss, something with a bit of heft to it. You know, with lots of magnification and so on, but obviously, you know, you pretty much have to remortgage your house to buy one of those, so I'll probably have to save my pennies. But for the time being, 200 meters, let's be honest, I'm not going to see many deer or fox further out than that, you know, and as you can see, it's no problem hitting it every single time, really. In fact, the zero on that rifle with 100 grain ammo at 50 meters is the same as it is at 200 meters. And halfway in between it maybe rises about an inch, so nearest makes no difference, you just put the crosshairs on it. As you can see here, we're just driving around to another bit of the permission. It's a huge area. That's the thing I love about the north. There's so much space. So we're out here near the farmhouse, actually just having a go at the 243. And you can see it really hits with some authority. 100 grains of lead really does, yeah, it does the trick. I know Dave was impressed. It's certainly a step up from a 223. You've got quite a bit more recoil, and like I said, yeah, it just hits with that much more authority. So yeah, I had a great day, learned a huge amount in a very short period of time. I was knackered by the end of it, but hopefully I can start knocking down a few foxes. So yeah, I had a fantastic day. I must admit, I was knackered because I was up at 5:30. I drove like over 350 miles, spent all day shooting, but it was all worth it. It was brilliant. I mean, I can't believe that I managed to start shooting reliably at 125 yards with subsonic ammo and a 2.2, hitting a rabbit's head sized target over and over again. And it only took a few minutes, really, of just saying, oh yeah, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong, oh, your scope's slightly canted, that needs sorting out. You know, half an hour later, I'm shooting better than I've ever shot before, just from some basics, really. And then with the 243, admittedly, it would have been nice to reach out like hundreds and hundreds of meters, but as I've said before, my scope, in terms of the way it's set up with 6x magnification, it's really a 200 yard or so rifle. But at those ranges, again, consistently hitting over and over and over again. And I even did take a few pot shots at a couple of crows, got at least 600 meters away, and I wasn't that far off, to be honest, and that was just kind of just guessing. But the rest of the shooting, again, that was in the wind. Well, you know, I was aiming about this, you know, much to the left or the right, depending on the shoots we were doing, just to get the bullet on target. And yeah, I was doing it. So if any of you guys get the opportunity to go up and shoot with Ash, and his friend Dave as well, he was there with us, take him up on it, because it'll really change the way you shoot. So either way, I hope you enjoyed that. As I'm sorry about the wind noise, but unfortunately it is what it is. It's, you know, people say it's grim up north, and it isn't grim. It's amazing, but it is a bit windy. So either way, keep watching.